Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into this incredible story about love, second chances, and the most embarrassing text message you could ever imagine, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell. Trust me, by the end of this story, you're going to want to see more content like this. And if this story touches your heart, don't forget to smash that like button. It really helps us bring you more amazing stories just like this one. Now, let's get into it. Marcus Thompson stared at his phone screen in absolute horror. The message had been delivered. Read. And there was no taking it back. The three simple words glowed mockingly on his screen: "My boss is so hot." Except those words weren't sitting in his best friend Derek's inbox where they belonged. No, they were now permanently etched in the message thread with his actual boss, Victoria Chen, the CEO of Heartwarming. His hands trembled as he watched the typing indicator appear, then disappear, then appear again. His career was over. His life was over. Everything he had worked so hard for as a single father raising his 7-year-old daughter was about to crumble because his stupid, clumsy fingers had betrayed him at the worst possible moment. But to understand how Marcus ended up in this moment of pure, unadulterated panic, we need to go back to the beginning. Back to a time when Marcus Thompson was just a broken man trying to piece together the fragments of his shattered life. 3 years earlier, Marcus sat in a sterile hospital waiting room, holding his daughter Lily's small hand as doctors delivered the news that would change everything. His wife, Rebecca, hadn't survived the surgery. A routine procedure had gone catastrophically wrong, and just like that, Marcus went from being a husband and father to a widower and single parent in the span of a few terrible hours. Lily had only been 4 years old. She didn't fully understand why mommy wasn't coming home, why daddy cried in the bathroom when he thought she couldn't hear, or why their house suddenly felt so empty and cold. All she knew was that something fundamental had shifted in her small world, and nothing felt safe anymore. Marcus took 3 months off from his job as a junior editor at a small publishing company to grieve and figure out how to be everything Lily needed. Those months were the darkest of his life. He barely slept, barely ate, and spent countless nights lying awake wondering how he was supposed to raise a little girl all on his own. Rebecca had been the glue that held everything together. She had known instinctively how to braid Lily's hair, how to make the perfect grilled cheese sandwich, how to chase away the monsters that lived under the bed. Marcus felt woefully inadequate in comparison. But children have a remarkable way of forcing you to keep moving forward, even when every fiber of your being wants to collapse. Lily needed breakfast. Lily needed help getting dressed. Lily needed someone to read her bedtime stories and tell her that everything was going to be okay, even when Marcus himself wasn't sure that was true. So he learned. He watched YouTube tutorials on how to do ponytails and French braids. He practiced making grilled cheese until he could replicate something close to Rebecca's recipe. He lay beside Lily's bed every night, fighting the monster under the bed with an imaginary sword until she giggled and fell asleep feeling protected. And slowly, painfully, Marcus and Lily began to find their new normal. When Marcus finally returned to work, he discovered that his position had been filled. The company expressed their condolences, offered him a small severance package, and wished him the best. Just like that, he was unemployed, a single father with mounting bills and a daughter depending on him. The next 6 months were a blur of job applications, interviews, and rejections. Marcus applied to every publishing position he could find, but the market was competitive, and his lengthy absence had created a gap in his resume that employers viewed with suspicion. He took freelance editing jobs to keep the lights on, worked late into the night after Lily fell asleep, and somehow managed to keep their little family afloat. It was Derek, his best friend since college, who finally sent him the job listing that would change everything. Heartwarming Publishing, one of the most prestigious publishing houses on the East Coast, was looking for a senior editor. The position was a significant step up from Marcus's previous role, and he almost didn't apply, convinced he wasn't qualified. "Just do it, man," Derek had said over beers one rare evening when Marcus's mother had agreed to babysit Lily. What's the worst that can happen? They say no, and you're exactly where you started. But what if they say yes? So Marcus applied. He spent hours perfecting his resume, crafting a cover letter that somehow conveyed his passion for literature without revealing the desperation behind it. He hit submit and tried to forget about it, certain he would never hear back. 2 weeks later, his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Victoria Chen, the CEO of Heartwarming Publishing, wanted to interview him personally. Marcus had heard of Victoria Chen before, of course. Everyone in the publishing industry knew her name. She had taken over Heartwarming Publishing from her father 10 years ago, transforming it from a struggling mid-tier publisher into a powerhouse that consistently produced bestsellers. She was known for her sharp business acumen, her unwavering standards, and her ability to spot talent that others overlooked. Industry magazines called her a visionary. Competitors called her intimidating. Employees called her fair but demanding. What the articles and industry gossip hadn't prepared Marcus for was the woman herself. Victoria was waiting for him when he arrived for his interview, rising from behind her desk to shake his hand. She was tall, with dark hair pulled back in an elegant twist, and eyes that seemed to see straight through every carefully rehearsed answer he had prepared. She wore a navy blue blazer over a simple white blouse, professional but not cold, and when she smiled, Marcus felt something shift in his chest that he hadn't felt in years. He ignored it. He was there for a job, not to notice how his potential employer's eyes crinkled at the corners when she laughed at his nervous joke about the traffic on the way over. The interview lasted 2 hours. Victoria asked him about his favorite books, his editorial philosophy, his vision for the future of publishing in an increasingly digital world. She asked about the gap in his resume, and Marcus found himself telling her the truth, about Rebecca, about the months of grief, about learning to be a single father while the world kept spinning indifferently around him. Victoria listened without interruption, her expression thoughtful and free of the pity Marcus had grown accustomed to seeing. When he finished, she simply nodded and said, "My mother passed when I was 12. My father raised me alone. I understand, perhaps better than most, what you've been through." In that moment, something connected between them. It wasn't romantic, not yet, but it was real, a recognition of shared pain, of the particular kind of strength required to keep going when everything falls apart. Marcus got the job. Working at Heartwarming Publishing was everything Marcus had hoped for and more. The work was challenging, the authors were talented, and for the first time in years, he felt like he was building something rather than just surviving. His new salary allowed him to move Lily out of their cramped apartment and into a small house with a backyard. He enrolled her in a better school, found a wonderful after-school program, and watched as his daughter began to flourish in their improved circumstances. Victoria was a demanding boss, but she was also fair and surprisingly supportive. She pushed Marcus to be better, to take risks with manuscripts that other editors might have passed on, and when those risks paid off, she made sure he received recognition for his work. She remembered his birthday, asked about Lily, and once sent over a care package when Lily had the flu and Marcus had to work from home. Over the months that followed, Marcus found himself looking forward to their interactions in a way that had nothing to do with professional development. He noticed the way Victoria's serious expression softened when she talked about books she loved. He noticed how she stayed late alongside her employees during crunch times, ordering dinner for everyone and rolling up her sleeves to help. He noticed the small kindnesses she extended to everyone around her, from the senior executives to the mail room staff. And increasingly, he noticed how beautiful she was. It was Derek who first voiced what Marcus had been desperately trying not to acknowledge. "Dude, you're into your boss," Derek said bluntly during one of their regular phone calls. "I am not," Marcus protested, even as his face flushed. "You just spent 20 minutes describing how she recommended a book to you and how her eyes lit up when she talked about it. You're into her." "She's my boss, Derek. It's inappropriate. It's complicated. It's terrifying." "Because you haven't felt this way about anyone since Rebecca?" Marcus fell silent. Trust Derek to cut straight to the heart of it. It had been 3 years since Rebecca's death. 3 years of focusing entirely on Lily and work, of telling himself he didn't have time for dating, of avoiding the very idea of opening his heart to someone new. The guilt alone was paralyzing. How could he even think about loving someone else when he had promised Rebecca forever? But Rebecca was gone. And Victoria Chen was very much present, walking into his office with that smile that made his stomach flip, and Marcus was terrified. Over the next several months, Marcus did everything in his power to maintain professional boundaries. He kept their conversations focused on work. He declined invitations to after-work drinks with colleagues when he knew Victoria would be there. He told himself, repeatedly, that what he felt was just admiration, just respect, just appreciation for a talented mentor. The lies became harder to maintain. Victoria started finding reasons to stop by his office more frequently. She brought him coffee sometimes, claiming she had ordered extra by accident. She asked for his opinion on manuscripts she easily could have evaluated herself. She lingered after meetings, discussing books and life and everything in between. And then there was the night of the company gala. Hartwell Publishing's annual gala was the event of the year, a glittering celebration of the authors and books that had shaped the industry. Marcus almost didn't attend. Finding a babysitter for Lily was always a challenge, but his mother insisted on taking her granddaughter for the weekend, claiming she missed her. Marcus arrived at the gala in the nicest suit he owned, feeling underdressed and overwhelmed by the elegance surrounding him. And then he saw Victoria. She was wearing a deep burgundy gown that seemed to glow under the chandelier lights. Her hair was down, falling in soft waves around her shoulders, and when she spotted him across the room, her face broke into a smile that made everything else fade into background noise. They spent most of the evening together. They danced, talked, laughed, and for a few hours, the careful walls Marcus had built between them began to crumble. When the night ended and Victoria said goodbye, her hand lingered on his arm just a moment too long, and Marcus saw in her eyes the same confusion and longing he felt himself. He went home that night and couldn't sleep, replaying every moment, every glance, every accidental touch. The next morning, sitting at his kitchen table while Lily was still at his mother's, Marcus did what he always did when he needed to process his feelings. He texted Derek. "I think something is happening with Victoria," he typed. "Last night at the gala, we danced, we talked, and man, my boss is so hot. I think I'm falling for her. What do I do?" He hit send without thinking, the same way he had sent Derek 1,000 messages before. Except his phone had betrayed him. The message hadn't gone to Derek. In his half-awake, coffee-deprived state, he had clicked on Victoria's name instead. And now those words, "My boss is so hot," were sitting in her inbox, completely out of context, completely unprofessional, completely mortifying. Marcus stared at the screen as the typing indicator appeared, disappeared, and appeared again. He considered throwing his phone into the garbage disposal. He considered moving to another country and changing his name. He considered simply never going to work again, consequences be damned. His phone buzzed. Victoria's response appeared. "Marcus, can you come to my office first thing Monday morning?" That was it. No acknowledgement of what he had written, no hint of how she felt about it. Just a simple, business-like request that somehow felt more terrifying than any angry response would have been. Marcus spent the entire weekend in a state of low-grade panic. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and nearly wore a hole in his living room carpet from pacing. Lily noticed something was wrong, and in her 7-year-old wisdom, she wrapped her arms around his legs and told him that everything would be okay because he was the best daddy in the whole world. Her words broke something loose in his chest. He knelt down, hugged her tight, and reminded himself that whatever happened on Monday, he still had this. He still had Lily, still had his skills, still had the life he had built from the ashes of his grief. Victoria Chen's opinion of him, whatever it might be, couldn't take that away. Monday morning arrived with the inevitability of a freight train. Marcus dropped Lily at school, drove to the office, and made the long walk to Victoria's corner office with the resignation of a man approaching his own execution. Victoria was waiting for him. She gestured for him to close the door and sit down. "So," she said, folding her hands on her desk. That was quite a message to receive on a Sunday morning. "I am so sorry," Marcus blurted out. "It was meant for my friend Derek. We've been friends for years, and I tell him everything, and it was completely unprofessional of me to talk about you that way, and I completely understand if you want to fire me, or transfer me, or—" "Marcus." He stopped. Victoria was looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Did you mean it?" The question hung in the air between them. Marcus could have backtracked, claimed it was a joke, found some way to explain away the words. But he was tired. Tired of hiding, tired of pretending, tired of living in the safe gray space where he didn't have to risk anything. "Yes," he said quietly. "I meant it. And I'm sorry if that makes things complicated, but you asked, and I've been lying to myself about how I feel for months now, and yes. I meant it." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, a smile began to spread across her face. "I have a confession to make," she said. "I've had to actively stop myself from finding excuses to come to your office at least 3 times a day. I ordered that extra coffee for you on purpose, every single time. And I've spent the last 6 months telling myself that getting involved with an employee would be inappropriate and complicated and ill-advised." Marcus's heart was pounding so hard he was sure she could hear it. "What changed your mind?" "Your message. Not the content, although that was certainly flattering." She laughed, a warm sound that filled the office. "It was the context. The message you meant to send your friend. You were asking what to do because something was happening between us. Which meant that you felt it too. And I realized that maybe the complicated, inappropriate, ill-advised thing would be worth it if the feelings were mutual." Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying I would like to have dinner with you, Marcus Thompson. Not as your boss, but as a woman who has been falling for you despite her best efforts not to." Their first official date happened 2 weeks later, once Victoria had quietly spoken with HR and established appropriate protocols for workplace relationships. She picked a restaurant near Marcus's house, understanding without him having to explain that he needed to be close to Lily. The evening was awkward at first. The professional dynamic they had maintained for so long was hard to shake, and they both fumbled through the transition from colleagues to something more. But by the time dessert arrived, they had found their rhythm again. Victoria told him about growing up in her father's shadow, about the pressure of taking over Hartwell Publishing, about the loneliness of being the boss in an industry where everyone wanted something from her. Marcus told her about Rebecca. About the grief that still surprised him sometimes, ambushing him in quiet moments. About the guilt he felt for wanting to move forward, for wanting to love someone new. He told her about Lily, about the joy and terror of raising her alone, about his fears that he wasn't enough. Victoria listened to all of it. And when he was done, she reached across the table and took his hand. "The love you had for your wife doesn't diminish whatever this is between us," she said. "And from everything you've told me about her, I think she would want you to be happy. Grief doesn't mean you're not allowed to live." Marcus looked at the woman across from him, brilliant, beautiful, and somehow interested in him despite all his baggage, and felt something click into place. Not a replacement for what he had lost, but something new. Something worth pursuing. "Can I take you on a second date?" he asked. Victoria smiled. "I thought you'd never ask." Over the following months, their relationship deepened. They learned each other's rhythms, navigated the complexities of dating when one person signs the other's paychecks, and slowly began to blend their lives together. The first time Victoria met Lily was terrifying for everyone involved. Marcus had agonized over the timing, consulted child psychology articles, and finally decided that after 3 months of dating, it was time. He told Lily that Daddy had a very special friend who wanted to meet her, and Lily had looked at him with those wise eyes she had inherited from her mother. "Is she your girlfriend?" Lily asked. Marcus was taken aback. "What do you know about girlfriends? Katie at school says her mommy has a boyfriend and now she might get a new daddy. Is Victoria going to be my new mommy?" The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. He sat down on Lily's bed, gathering his thoughts. "Lily, nobody will ever replace your mommy. She loved you so much, and she's always going to be your mom, no matter what. But sometimes, after someone we love goes to heaven, we can make room in our hearts for new people too. Victoria is very special to me, and I want you to meet her. Is that okay?" Lily considered this with all the gravity a 7-year-old could muster. "Does she like dinosaurs?" "I'm not sure. We can ask her." "Okay then." The meeting itself was less traumatic than Marcus had feared. Victoria arrived with a dinosaur coloring book she had clearly spent time selecting and a genuine nervousness that somehow made her more endearing. Lily was shy at first, hiding.